Share this on
Oh,
my
hey
page, right?
everybody! But we're live. Yes, you can. Hey everybody! Some pre-show chatter going on as we overlap to being live with you here on Drum Talk TV. I'm Dan Schinder here on Drum Talk TV, coming to you from Globe, Arizona. Where that is that? I live here and I don't know. Just kidding. It's in Arizona and it's 100 miles east of Phoenix. We're right on the 60 highway. Come visit if you're ever in town. Let me know ahead of time. You're all welcome. We'll jam. Wear a mask. And Chris Moore
Yeah,
is in Chino Hills, California, SoCal, my old stomping grounds. And
yeah.
Chris, how are you? It's great to have you on the show. You've done stuff with us, but I don't think we've done this before, have we?
Not like this.
No, we
No,
haven't.
we've only sat down
Right,
live in person. Yeah,
right. And that was eons ago. I think the first year of Drum Talk TV, 2013, maybe 2014. And that
yeah,
was in, what was the name? Bobby Boo's place.
yeah.
The
L.A. drums.
LA Drums,
L.A.
thank you. Sorry,
Yeah,
Bobby. Yeah, absolutely. And you were our host for the Bonzo Bash coverage in
Th-
2019, it was, right?
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so thanks for
And
doing that. And folks,
I
tell
think
us where you're
I was playing
watching
at the
from,
whiskey
too.
that night. I was playing at the whiskey that night. I
That's
think.
right. Covering the Bonzo Bash and playing at the whiskey. And if you watched the coverage, you know he was drinking whiskey, too. Just
Right.
kidding.
Yeah. Right.
um, and folks, tell us where you're watching from. There's Lori Shube is watching. I gave her a heads up. This
Oh
was
man,
happening.
Lori.
So I have a story to tell. It's a Drum Talk TV story that involves Chris and involves Lori too. And Chris, I don't know if you've ever heard this story, or if you
Okay.
have, I don't know if you've known the inside part of it. So folks, check this out. When I first started Drum Talk TV, 2013, it was before video. Um, and finally, there was video. So I started posting videos of famous drummers for their birthdays, for lessons, for news coverage, industry news, drum solos, just different things like that. And we used to get messaging on our Facebook page, which is closed. It's been closed for years. You get messages through the website. We used to get messages all the time, especially as our numbers really blew up. People would say, will you post my video? Will you post my video? Hey, can I get some exposure? Will you post my video? We had this sort of snobby thing, and I admit I wrote it. It wasn't intended to be snobby, but it says, the Drum Talk TV Facebook page is for the relationships we have with the artists we work with. There are plenty of groups you can share your video in. Da 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 da. Have a great day. And that was that. So one
Okay.
day, I don't know what possessed me to look at one of these videos. I look at this message, and it's this guy playing the drums, and so here's what happened. I'm going to demonstrate. So I'm looking at my monitor, and okay, arms crossed. Let's check this guy out. Because the person that sent the video is like, you gotta see this guy. Can you give my guy some exposure? I'm helping this drummer out. I love what you guys do. Great content. All there's like business talk and support. I'm like, So okay, I'll check out this video. So I'm watching the video. And my face goes like this. And right about there, the light bulb went on, and I felt my face do that because I got excited watching him play. And I thought, wait a minute, if I'm a fan of the show like any other music fan or drummer, so I thought, if I'm thinking this, I bet our fans will do. I did a 180, and that video was Chris. And
Oh
watching Chris
man.
play and the twinkle in his eye and his smile and great playing, and it was Lori that sent the video. If I
Oh
remember
wow.
right.
Oh man.
Yeah. And
Huh.
so we did a 180. Actually, then Lori came on board as my partner for like 3.5 years
Yeah.
and did the back end. She was our chief digital officer. She's sort of back on board, but I can't say how publicly yet. Big announcement
Okay.
coming, folks. Big announcement. I'll give you a hint.
Nice.
It does not involve. Yeah, it does sort of. It involves Joe Coffee. There, I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. Man,
So
Lori's the best. That's awesome. Hi, Lori.
yeah. Hi, Lori.
Yeah.
So let's see. Oklahoma's watch. I'm going to refresh my screen here. Share this to someone who you think likes drumming, folks, if you want. And so yeah, that was really cool. I'll check comments and we'll take questions. So I had to tell that Drum Talk TV story that Chris is a big part of, and maybe didn't even know that, right?
Yeah, that's I well, and the thing is, I think Lori has like always been just super amazing, super cool person. And, it's, it was one of those things where back then she was kind of, interested in music and doing some stuff in music. And she was a really, really smart person. And it's just like, man, I'm glad she ended up working with you. Cause she's one of the good ones, man.
Yeah. And there's not a lot. Oh gosh, I got so much to say about that. Yeah, so Lori's involved with another project that's in the works, and the whole world will know about it within a month or so, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah, so that'll be exciting. I don't know if you know about it. I'll have to talk to you about it after the show. But I want to show everybody you're playing, and then we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about how you as musicians can still be making money even though you're locked up at home. We're going to talk about file sharing. We're going to talk about building relationships with other musicians around the world and recording records and putting great music out there. We're going to talk about his Lefty open-handedness and that whole thing, which I have a take on. We'll get to that. But first, let's check out Chris playing CT Scan. C for Chris, T for Trevor, his son, who's only 7. Wait till you hear this kid play guitar. Just kidding. Just kidding. Trevor's like 40. Just kidding. He's like, what is he, 23? 25? 21. There you go. Check this out. I love this piece. I'm just going to jump in somewhere. We'll play some of this. Here we go. Play. I love those triplets, by the way.
What is it?
Real Bruford-esque.
Oh, man.
Right in the middle of that thing. Bing! So, it's a very cool piece. Did you and Trevor write that together? Did Trevor write that? The guitar playing is great. It's very Eric Johnson, Joe Satriani-esque along those lines.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I actually... I endorsed Soultone Cymbals, and so they were like, hey, like they wanted me to come over and do a video clip, and we were, because I do those videos with them every, 6 months or something like that, and they're awesome because, and we can talk about this later as well, but I do want to say one thing that I really respect about Soultone is that they will have artists come in and perform in their studio. They'll do a pro-level recording and filming,
cool.
And then they'll post it. They really support their artists, and it's like, how many cymbal companies do you know that do that? And it's like, sure, the minor ones are awesome. I love watching those, but there's not a lot of cymbal companies that'll really support their artists like that. So this is, it's a really special thing. Anyway.
Yeah, props to Tomar and Icky Levy for doing that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, man, those guys are amazing. So anyway, but what happened was they had said, "Hey, do you want to come in and do another, video?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'd love to." So we were actually on a camping trip, and we were out in the middle of nowhere, like no human contact for like 5 days.
Well, I can go for some of that.
We're sitting there hanging out by the river, and we're talking, and I go, "Hey," because I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for the video, and all of a sudden I'm like, "Hey Trev, I got to do this, video thing for Soultone. Do you want to, if I give you like a drum track, if I create something, do you want to write the music for it?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'd love to." He got, all excited about it. So I said, "Okay, I've got a couple of ideas." So anyway, I did the drum track itself, and I structured it as though it would be a song, and then I gave it to him, not knowing what he'd come up with. And it was like instantly when I played it for him, he picked up an acoustic guitar and started playing, what ended up becoming the song, like on the spot. I was like, man, amazing,
Yeah.
But I did that with George Lynch with that band Ultraphonics. we have a video for a song called Walk, Run, Crawl, and it's the one that looks like we're playing on a spaceship. But anyway, excuse me.
Wait a minute. You mean that's not a spaceship?
Well, it is.
Okay,
it
good.
actually is. It was. Yeah. So we were trying to write a song. We were trying to figure out something. We were sitting there in the studio, and George, being like all of us musicians, when you have an idea, you record it into your phone, right, as a voice memo. So I said, George, give me your best heavy rock riff. Don't save it for one of your other things. Give it to me right now. And
he played Smoke on the Water.
Yeah, I played Smoke on the Water, and then we changed it. No, but anyway, so he played me that riff, and I go, send me that right now, And so I took that to my studio, loaded it into my Pro Tools rig, and then I figured out kind of a tempo for it, and then recorded a drum track that would be an arrangement for that song, even though all I had was like a 20-second riff. And I figured out like a pre-chorus, chorus, a breakdown in the middle, all that stuff. And then I sent it to him, and I'm like, all right, here's the song, write it, and he did the same thing like what Trevor did. He wrote the music to it. And then Corey Glover, the singer, the guy from Living Colour, is this iconic singer. And so anyway, I wrote the lyrics. The song's called Walk, Run, Crawl, but I wrote the lyrics about Standing Rock and the protest that was going on there, which, by the way, they have actually cut off that pipeline now. There was the court ruled that, they did not do the research to make sure that the land would be safe if they had a break in the pipeline. So they did stop that. But it was about the protests and all of that going on at the time. Mm-hmm. So I had written these lyrics, and I shared them with Corey, and he's like, oh, we have to do this, and so we ended up doing, that was Walk, Run, Crawl.
That's awesome.
But I did kind of the same thing with Trev, where I gave him a drum track, and he just crushed it. I was like, how did you do that? How did you figure that out? It's like perfect. So yeah.
And I gotta say, I love young talent. We discover a lot of it on Drum Talk TV. Sometimes I come across it. Sometimes it's sent to us. And Chris and I are working on a whole other project where Chris is actually the drummer. And we were going to have Trev play bass and guitar. And you know what? He's so busy. He ghosted us. He just totally ghosted us and bailed.
Yeah, I know. He's too good for us.
Because he's producing a record for some other people. So we said, definitely, go do that, which is really cool. But I that leads me to my other topic, and we'll get into, I want to get into your setup and being a lefty, playing open-handed. Ray Luzier is a righty who plays open-handed. Billy Cobham, Dom Famularo, a lot of open-handed players out there. Lenny White, one of my favorite drummers. We'll get into that, and folks, send questions if you have questions. But I want to talk about the whole file sharing thing. And, you've stayed pretty busy. You did a piece that I'm going to play an excerpt of in a moment with some gents in Russia. And I see a lot of whining and wenching and crying on social media from musicians because they can't gig. And there's so many other things you all can be doing for revenue streams. I know it sucks. Believe me, I know it sucks, especially if that was your main revenue stream. But you can be teaching. You can writing books. Chris has a book we'll talk about. You can be doing file sharing like he did with these guys in Russia. Talk about that whole process and use those guys as just one example of how it came about and what that whole process is like to kind of maybe open the mind to some other drummers and other musicians, because there's enough to go around. I mean, how cool is it to build a friendship with people in other countries that you may not ever perform with, but you're recording great music together and putting it out there?
Yeah, no, thank you. They reached out to me. The band is called 208 Talks of Angels, and they're from Russia. And
your camera turned off.
Sorry, hang on.
There you go.
Hang on. There we go. Somebody called me. I try to tell people, don't call me. I'm doing an interview thing. Anyway, but they reached out to me and said, hey, so, we're a huge fan of your work. And, would you want to do a song with us? And I originally actually did a song with them. The first time was years ago, quite a few years ago. And it was great. And so then they reached out to me again. And this time they said, hey, I know you're busy, but we have a programmed drum track that we did for this song. And is there any way that you know of that we could make it sound more human?
Yeah, asking the wrong guy for the right reasons.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, I'll tell you something, Dan, I got to be honest. As a drummer, but also as a music fan, I despise programmed drums. As soon as I hear them, as soon as I know immediately when I hear it, no matter how human they try to make it sound and natural they try to make it sound, you know. And I'm like, I hate that sound. I hate the sound. I hate the vibe. Anyway, but it's also because I'm a drummer. And so I listen to it and I go, yeah, you know what? It sounded really mechanical. And the problem with a lot of times when folks will try to program drums is that oftentimes they will try to program things that are physically impossible to play, where you need like 5 limbs to be able to do it.
Right.
And so I'm like, you know what? Let me take a crack at this thing. And they were like, oh my God, so they got all excited and I go, and so anyway, I worked it out and I sent them the drum track and they freaked out and dug it. And that was it. It was so fun. And so, but anyway, and, but those folks are, they're so humble and genuine and cool, and they're just good people, and so it's kind of thing that as beyond being musicians, we've established a friendship. And what's interesting about it is that I'll probably never, ever meet these people in person. I'll probably never play music with them in the same room, but they really have had an impact on me.
Right. Absolutely.
I get a little emotional. It's just, they really,
well, let's play a clip so everyone can kind of feel some of that emotion.
Yeah, man.
The music's great. Here we go. You find the right button, folks. I'm getting there. Relax. Here we go. Here we go.
All right.
I'm going to jump ahead a touch. I love this track. I want to give a couple of shout outs real quick, then we'll talk some more about it. And another topic. Dennis Sanchez says, Chris, talk about Project
Infidelica. Infidelica, yeah.
Oh, Infidelica. Okay, cool. And I had a Greg Crane, who's the artist relations guy over at Yamaha. Hi, Greg. And I see
Greg.
I don't know if any of you know of this guy. He plays in I guess kind of you could say a flash in the pan sort of teen beat magazine cover band called his name's Casey Grillo. Hey, Casey.
Yeah, man.
And we got people chiming in from all over, from upstate New York, from I saw some other locations. Where do they go? Well, let's keep it moving. This is cool. Thanks everyone for chiming in. Let us know if you have questions. So, what would you say to musicians, drummers, sax players, guitar players, whatever, to encourage them to take that step and consider this sort of project? Since you've had many great experiences like this, but if they're hesitant for whatever reason, maybe because they're not so savvy with the technology, or it feels weird to make music with guys they aren't drinking beers with, or what would you tell them? What can you do to inspire?
Yeah. Okay, no, that's a great question. And by the way, before I do that, I have to say a big public thank you to Greg Crane, because Greg was my artist relations guy from Yamaha when I did the Rock of Ages tour. He helped me put the drum set together for that tour.
Awesome.
And he was so helpful and so amazing. And I actually had a problem. I had an issue on the road in Rochester, New York, where one of the cymbal pads went down, and Greg overnighted the cymbal pad out, and I was able to play the show. I had backups and stuff like that, but this was a specific one, and he really saved the day. He was super amazing and cool.
Just so people know, clarify cymbal pad. I think a lot of people might be thinking,
sorry.
You mean the little felt thing? You didn't have extra felts?
No, I'm sorry. No, what I did on that tour, and again, we'll talk about that later, but anyway, what I did on that tour was I actually created a hybrid kit, because in Rock of Ages, the band is on stage with the other performers. So I wanted to have an acoustic drum set, but I also needed it to be quiet, and so as to not, if there was dialogue going while the band was playing. And so instead of putting me, I'm a cage-free drummer, all right? I'm not going to be in the box. So I said, what if I play, it looks like an acoustic kit, but it's actually electronic. And so I created a hybrid kit to play through that on that tour. And I did 200 shows on it, and it was awesome. But Greg was my guy from Yamaha that helped me put that together. Yeah.
Great. From one of the electronic kits was the cymbal pad?
Yeah, so I used Yamaha cymbal pads on that kit. I was going to use the quiet cymbals and all that, but Soultone didn't have them at that time, and so I was like, well, I'm just going to use the Yamaha cymbal pads. So that's how that went down. Cool. Anyway, but going back to this question about doing tracks remotely and recording remotely and not being in the same room together and being able to write and all that. When you and I were kids, that was the thing. We'd get in a rehearsal room, it'd be sweaty and gritty and gnarly, and we'd get in there and rock out. And we come up with something if the vibe was right. And you'd go, hey, put in your cassette recorder and record it, before we forget it.
Right.
And so anyway, now it's a situation where you've got, obviously we can't right now, but also based on distance, I would have artists from literally all over the world send me a track and go, hey, would you want to record drums on this? And my question back to them was the most important question, which is, how much are you going to pay me? Right. And so then they would, we'd agree on a price, and they'd pay me the money, and I'd do the track, or they wouldn't, and I wouldn't do it. But anyway, and so I started doing these drum tracks for people all over the world, and it's really, I've played on things for artists that are household names. I've done stuff that's been in movies and commercials and all kinds of stuff. But like in your case, I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't tell you what those are, But it was funny. It'd be funny because I would be with my parents somewhere, having lunch, and my mom would, the music is on, and my mom would go, is this you drumming? And I'd be like, no, that's not me, Mom, And then a little while later I go, but that's me,
That's cool.
Crazy, man.
Yeah. Cool.
So, but anyway, and so, but you bring up a good point, though, is that organically you are, what you're missing in terms of that energy between the artists being in the same room and doing all that, you really have to level up and be able to really play your best as though you're in the room with them. And if I record a drum track for somebody, I'm in their band that day. I'm committed to them. They're the most important band I've ever played with in that moment. Yes. I'm absolutely all theirs, and I'm giving them everything I got.
And so from the ends of your toes.
Yeah. And so that's a super important part of that process, and it's hard. You have to summon the energy to be able to pull it off.
I think it relates to two things that are united to make that work. It's part of a work ethic, and it's dedication. And it's dedication to yourself as a musician first, folks, that you're then dedicating to the people you're doing that with or for. And that's really important to understand that it benefits you first. That's what's important.
Well, and it's I think that a big part of it is, for me anyway, as an artist, I want to add value to whatever that track is that I'm recording. So I want to do something that I'm not going to take over and, throw up all over their track, but I also don't want to just be laid back, not doing anything. I want to add something. Yeah. And I want to, when I hear a track, one of my favorite drummers, Ray Luzier and all those guys, amazing. Okay. One of my favorite drummers is Shane Gallus, and Shane always has a way, not when he's shredding, But when Shane's doing, kind of a simple thing, he always has a way of adding some magic thing to that track where he'll do a little drum thing. And I just go, God, it's so good. It fits so well. It's so perfect.
Yeah.
And Shane is like the master of being able to do that. So not only is he an incredible drummer, but when he's laying it down simple, he finds a way to make his mark in that song without, overdoing it, so to speak. That is there's such a talent behind that,
On that topic,
Anyway.
You're right. And on that topic, I want to mention two drummers I feel the same way about. One is, I think in his own way, Stuart Copeland is like that.
Oh, yeah.
Shube's favorite band, The Police. And another one is, I was kind of surprised at this. You know Dylan Elise?
Yeah.
So I was interviewing Dylan, and he's one of our adopted kids, by the way.
Cool.
And I was surprised when I asked, what's your favorite part of the show? Because it was right after a Blood, Sweat, and Tears show, which folks have got to see on tour someday when they come back out. And I was surprised that he said, when I'm playing the more simpler, four-on-the-floor stuff. And Dylan's a freakishly flashy drummer.
Yeah.
In really artistic, creative, and colorful ways. So to hear that from a drummer like him was extremely refreshing. It was great.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
To your point, what Shane does, absolutely.
There is, there's a lot to be said for really being able to lay into a groove. And the famous comment from Dave Grohl about, if you really want to be a great drummer, lock yourself in a room and play Back in Black, for how many ever years straight. And I get that. I agree with that. But at the same time, it's like there's I won't name names, but there's a drummer out there that like prides himself on being like a cool guy to hang with and to lay into a groove and not overdo it and all that. And it's like he's really good at doing that. But the problem is when I listen to one of the tracks he doesn't do like what Shane does. He doesn't add any extra value, and it's almost like you could have programmed that drum track for free. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I think as artists, it's the same thing with a guitar player. I want to hear a guitar player jump out and do something a little special, or a bass player hit something that you go, oh, wow, that was cool.
Them with.
Yeah, and I think that's a big problem in music right now, honestly, is that I think some of this stuff, the players are playing it too safe. And I think that a lot of maybe it's coming from a producer or a record label or something where they go, oh, just do this, just play this. And it's like, well, that doesn't turn the music fans on. That's sort of like, all right, predictable.
Well, all I could say in my defense to that is that I am cool to hang with.
Well, you are. It's true. Come on.
No, and you know what? I know someone's going to comment and say this. I'll just say it. A lot of people are going to say, but that's playing for the song. But playing for the song doesn't always mean just playing boom, chop, boom, boom, chop. Brian Tichy said it best. Brian pointed out on that topic, he said, well, La Villa Strangiato, Neil was playing for that song. And then I said, and Carl was playing for Tarkus. He was playing for that.
Right.
So what is playing for this? So you can't use that as an excuse for simplicity. I get it, but...
Yeah. No, and Brian Tichy is, the guy is a brilliant drummer. He's amazing. And when you hear his stuff, his feel is what helps make the magic in that song. It's not that he's playing necessarily anything flashy. It's literally the way he plays drums. It's just like, man, the guy's just a monster, Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's talk about... Oh, wow. Chris, Phil says the two of you have known each other for 10 years. I think we're going on 6 or 7. Let's see here. I want to look and see. Okay, so thanks everybody so much for chiming in. Feel free to ask questions. You may have questions on this next topic, which is being an open-handed player. And what's interesting to me is this. I'm in no way interested myself in becoming a 100% open-handed player. However, there are things I do when I play where with my left hand I can do all kinds of things on this side of the set that are just as dexterous as my right hand. I'm very ambidextrous, so that helps. But I'm in no way interested in playing as an open-handed player. However, I will say this. I do question, where did this ever come from? because we don't play. If you're a right-handed piano player, you don't cross over, or left. A piano's played like this, so why not drums? But yet I'm not interested in relearning everything. So I don't know. To me, it's a very interesting topic. So the question is, Chris, how did you start like that? Did you switch to that? If you switched to that, what made you stick with that? Or if you started like that, what was your influence? Untie that knot.
Okay. No, really good question. So basically, yes, I play open lefty. I'm left-handed, and the way that I started playing drums was, I've told this story before, but my a neighbor, Kenny Blair, his family was moving for the summer. They were having a house built, and so during the summer, he needed a place to keep his drums. So the deal was he could keep them at my house, and I could play them, but I had to give them back at the end of the summer, which we never did. My parents bought the kit, and but Kenny sat down and played a beat for me, because at that point I'd never played a drum set, and like I've said before, it was this magic sound that came out. I was like, how do you do that? Like, I couldn't believe it.
How old
but
were
I
you?
Sat down. I was I think I was in, I want to say I was around 9, maybe 8, somewhere in there. And so he sat down and played it, and I was so blown away at how he was able to make that sound, right, with 3 limbs at the time. But anyway, and so I just sat down and started replicating it, and he goes, "Oh my God, you're doing it!" It just kind of happened magically. But I didn't even notice that I was playing the hi-hat with the left hand. I was playing open-handed, but it just felt natural. That's what came natural to me, so that's what I did. And I'm self-taught. And so I did take lessons later, but the drum teacher that I went to wanted me to cross over. And it was going to be easier for him to write the exercises that way than have to unwind it. And I was like, no, man, I got to do what I just left that and, did my thing. And so anyway, but so I'm self-taught, and the open lefty thing is just really natural for me. And, honestly, like, if I played right-handed, I would actually really think about having a remote hi-hat on my right side where the ride cymbal is, and play open righty, because it leaves you open to do stuff. You don't have to uncross your arms to get somewhere. But there's no wrong answer, man. It's like whatever works is it. And
my thing is, as much sense as that absolutely makes, I just don't want to reinvent myself at 57 years old.
No, and the thing of it is,
I
that
just now
it's
can
like,
tie my own shoes. I mean,
well, what I tell people is, look, man, however you do it, like I've seen somebody play guitar left-handed upside down, and I'm just like, how do you? And I've seen people play guitar, a left-handed guitar, right-handed upside down, because that's how they learn how to play it.
Right-handed player.
Yeah,
right?
man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Do your thing, Yeah.
Interesting. Thanks for addressing that, because again, I think it's a neat topic. I dig that. Let's see if we have any questions. Hey, Kelly Ray Tubbs has joined us, a drumming historian extraordinaire, great teacher, and plays a lot of performances, when we're able to do it, that are very theatrical drumming and percussion and things like that.
Nice.
Kelly's a very well-rounded drummer. Nice to see you, Kelly.
Nice.
John Kinsing says, absolutely, I'm so tired of sterile blues drumming. You're a living human being. Geez, so he's referring to that other part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Anthony Whiteman says, I agree with Chris. Bill Bruford would tell those execs to go to hell. Bill Bruford is the best example, absolutely, Anthony, because I think Stuart Copeland might be second when it comes to this, but the number one player who no one has even bothered to try to emulate is Bill effing Bruford. He has a totally different sound. Every record, every tour, he had a completely different drum kit. No one plays, or I think even thinks like Bill Bruford. So that's a great example.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to ask you something. Let me rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
Did those Russian guys try to rope you into like rigging the election or anything? I'm just curious.
No,
Okay,
thankfully.
I had to check. I had to check.
No, they're great, man. I mean, we agreed early on that despite whatever would happen between our countries and our politicians, et cetera, we were going to remain friends. So we just committed to that. So we have never discussed politics. It's always been music and just coolness, you know?
That's great. And that's the way life should be. It's, well, we won't go down that road, but yes, that's perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
I know that Shane is one of your big influences. I know that John Bonham is one of your big influences. I have two questions. Who are, okay, 3 or 4 questions here.
Okay, go.
Who are some of your first biggest influences? Who have you fallen in love with lately, whether they're contemporary or an old school drummer that you're just kind of now getting into? And what music do you listen to that might surprise people now that they've had a sense of, okay, you played with George Lynch, you were in Why Not, Rock of Ages, they saw some clips. What would be some, and you can answer all those in whatever order you want.
Okay, no, that's great. So yeah, early on, I was, of course, as any kid back then, I was a huge Kiss fan. That was really what started me playing. And my brother, who's a couple years older, would bring home, you know, he brought home Kiss Alive, and I'm like, this is it. You know, that was it. But, you know, Led Zeppelin, of course, and Queen and Alice Cooper and all that stuff back then. But then when Van Halen 1 came out, that was it. And I was like, that's my band. Those are my guys,
oh, wow.
you know.
I never knew that. Interesting.
Yeah, and Alex Van Halen is one of my favorite drummers of all time.
Oh, wow,
and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I had the unique experience that when Van Halen 2 came out, right after Van Halen 2 came out, that summer, that was 1979. That summer was the best summer ever. But anyway,
You must have been like only 12 or 13?
I was,
or 11?
I was like between 7th and 8th grade. But what happened was I got a call from Michael Anthony's little brother, the bass player in Van Halen. His little brother, Dennis, said, hey, you know, I have a band, I play bass, you know, and my guitar player and I, our drummer just quit. Do you want to, you know, get together? And they came over and we jammed. And the first song we played was Jamie's Crying, of course.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, and I joined, you know, we joined up, and he and I became, you know, pretty much best friends through junior high and high school. But anyway, so I had the unique experience of, again, Van Halen being my all-time favorite band, even to this day. But I went to their rehearsals. I went backstage at shows. It was like, we went to the 1980 Invasion tour rehearsals for the Women and Children First record at SIR in Hollywood. And they had their whole stage set up with Alex's white kit that had the vacuum bass drums that went out, and it looked like a spaceship.
Yeah.
Module thing was as a drum riser. Anyway, they had that entire stage set up in the big room at SIR in Hollywood, and we walked in and we sat down, and the stage was, you know, about a foot off the ground. That was it. And Dennis and I sat on the floor with our backs against the flight case and watched the Van Halen concert, and the only people in the room were the band and crew and me and Dennis, you know.
That's
and
awesome.
So they were coming up and jamming to us, and like, you know, Dave would kick his foot over our heads, and Ed would, you know, like come up and shred with us and all that. It was so fun. It was our own private Van Halen concert.
I had an opposite Van Halen experience, helping someone deliver a piece of equipment to Eddie's house in Laurel Canyon. There was a Porsche sunk in the pool, and the guys were passed out, and Valerie was just walking around shaking her head, and she signed the paperwork for the delivery. That was my Van Halen experience. And I will say this, for the record, I think this is no slight on anybody. This is a huge compliment from Michael Anthony. I think he's a better singer than both Dave and Sammy. And I like both those guys. I think Michael Anthony's an awesome vocalist. All those background vocals. And dude is... I saw them when Sammy Hagar was with him. And in the middle of like breaking out into this instrumental part, he just gave out this Ian Gillan yell for like 4 bars. Yeah. I was like, oh my God. Yeah. He's really a great musician. He's so underrated. Yeah,
and I've jammed with him. I've jammed with Mike, and he's a phenomenal bass player. He's so underrated as a bass player. It's just, you know, he's and you probably know this, but he didn't play bass after Fair Warning. Ed played bass on Diver Down in 1984,
And Michael
that kind of
Anthony
thing. So
switched to accordion.
yeah, right. So anyway, so going back to it, so Peter Criss and then Alex Van Halen early on, and then as Rush became, I became a Neil Peart fan, and that never went away. And so in later years, in more recent times, I really do kind of just love everybody out there. Matt Gartzka, of course, and then Matt Halpern from Periphery, and Animals as Leaders with Matt Gartzka, and then but those are the more like progressive guys. I went and saw Winery Dogs, and Mike Portnoy was a monster, even on a smaller kit. He was so good and so fun to watch. But probably, and then of course Bonham, early on, and then I rediscovered Bonham when I saw the footage of Zeppelin playing at Royal Albert Hall, and I think it was 1969 on the How the West Was Won DVD.
Yes.
When he does the Moby Dick drum solo, and he's doing the double strokes, and then he gets into the 6-stroke rolls in a triplet.
Yeah.
It's just like triplet feel was just amazing. And I sat down, I'm like, I'm going to learn how to do that. And I did,
it like butter. It was just so smooth.
And so, that kind of stuff. And then, I really do listen to what's out there. And the thing that I really try to do is, I try to do my own version of it. I really do try to stick to my guns and how I play, and adapt to a lot of the kind of newer stuff as well. And so I'm a huge fan, like Jared, Drumeo and all that. Mike Johnston as a teacher is just amazing. These guys are so good, and I believe that those two guys have really changed modern drumming. I really do believe that they've had the biggest impact on modern drumming. And then a guy like Eric Moore, who's just phenomenal. He's from another planet. Yeah. Those guys are just incredible. And so to me, I really, I do try to incorporate that stuff in my playing, but I also don't want to sound like everybody. So you'll notice that in my recordings, I do try to retain an organic sound to my drums. In fact, there's a guy, a really good drummer named Jimmy Wells from up north, who plays in a Journey tribute band, and the guy's phenomenal drummer and a great guy. He called me and said, how do you get that sound out of your drums? And I said, because I don't use any plugins or I'm just using EQ because I want the drums to sound organic.
Yeah, guess what? I'm using drums to sound like drums.
Well, the thing is, Dan, that I do think that a little bit of a negative thing about technology these days is that everybody, and again, nothing against Steven Slate, but everybody wants to use that Steven Slate plugin that makes their drums sound like every video that's the drum videos that are all on, and I look at that, and I as soon as I listen to it, I go, man, that's not the sound of that kit. That sounds like the other guy's kit that I just watched his video. They all sound the same, and it's a shame, because I want to hear the nuance coming through of how they approach the kit, how they play those drums, and how they hit them.
Right, so. And I mentioned earlier, folks, if you weren't on board yet, I mentioned that Chris is part of a project I'm involved in that Chris is actually playing the drums on. And when he was going to record his track, I said, Chris, I have zero direction for you, basically, especially as far as the sound, because Chris and I love the same stuff when it comes to organic sounds. So eventually you'll hear about this project for TV with kids playing music that I'm not supposed to say anything about. So who were some of the more newer discoveries that have influenced you? One for me, probably the newest, and it's been 1.5 years now, is Ray Hearn from Haken. When I heard Vector that came out that October, I'm like, who is this? And thankfully he came on the show as well, and that was great.
Okay.
But that album's amazing in every way. So he's like one of my new, oh my gosh, I want to be Ray Hearn when I grow up, Well,
I'll tell you another one, and this is actually a really, I think, an important topic for musicians today, especially, with drummers. So, pre-COVID, okay, as things were getting, things are going along in the music business, and it's sort of like, how do you make money? How do you play shows? Oh, you got to have this, and oh, you got to have that. You got to be in with Live Nation or whatever, that kind of stuff. And you got to have a good booking agent and everything. But I think the one band that really took the power back, so to speak, and really did it themselves is Fearless Flyers, Wolfpack. And Nate Smith, like my buddy Chris Strickler just said, Nate Smith is a monstrous drummer. He's one of my favorite drummers. And these guys just put out these little video clips that look like they're playing in a living room, and Nate's playing kick, snare, hi-hat. That's it. Yeah. And the kick drum is held in place by a cinder block, and he's got a mic in the kick, a mic on the snare, and then an overhead, and that's it. No toms, no ride cymbal, no crash cymbal, and he's just crushing it, right?
When you said Nate Smith, it reminded me of another one for me, which is Ash Sohn. And I think they both have such great grooves, both those guys. Amazing.
Oh, totally, man. And Nate is just, if you see any of the stuff of them live, like what they did, they went to Chicago and they did a show that was like sort of to prove, we could do it. We could do what we did in the video live. And they're at some like kind of a, like a big club or, some kind of venue. And he does a couple of little drum solo things. And again, it's just kick, snare, hi-hat. And it's unbelievable. And you hear the crowd go, whoa.
I love it.
Whoa, And so anyway, and then they go out and they sort of prove that they could do it live. And then they go out and they sold out Madison Square Garden at the end of September last year with no label, no management, nothing. They just did it. And it's like, man, that's the way to do it. So I do think that putting your own videos out and building your own thing, it really can be done. The secret is you just have to be really, really good. Yeah. And that's the part where that sort of sense of entitlement of like, well, we're putting a video out there. How come people aren't? It's like, well, these guys had something special, man. They really are just, and Joe Dart, the bass player, is just phenomenal, man. It's so fun.
I want to tell everybody, if there's names we've mentioned, any names at all that you don't know or you're not familiar with, go check them out. This is what broadens your horizons as a musician. I'll trade with you, Chris. I'll trade with you some guilty pleasures.
Okay, go.
Some things that might surprise people that you listen to or even play to. I'll do the same. So you heard Chris talk about the stuff he's into, everything from Kiss to Van Halen, Zeppelin. So you kind of get the idea. My thing is Zeppelin, Deep Purple, yes, Genesis, ELP. I'll go first. One of my guilty pleasures that I love listening to and playing to is the B-52s, believe it or not.
Totally.
That's my Back in Black shed in time for 2 hours. Just to play B-52s and have to be right on the money. There's no room for fluff. What would be one of your guilty pleasures?
Oh, man, and I do have to mention on that, on that record with, Love Shack and all that stuff, the guy who played on Deadbeat Club, and I know he played on another track. It might have been on Rome, but anyway, Sonny Emery played on that record, and I saw him as the opening act for Terry Bozzio at a clinic in the mid '80s, and Bozzio, like Missing Persons had ended, and Bozzio had that Remo kit with the black feisty cymbals, and he was like, you could tell he was just burnt out. I felt so bad for him because he was just like trying to find his next thing, and then he ended up
reinvented everything.
Yeah, and then he really fell into place for him. But anyway, Sonny Emery got up and just wiped the floor with him. He did this drum solo that was just like, oh my God, incredible. And then Bozzio gets up there and he's sort of like, yeah, I'm here, and I felt so bad. And then again, Bozzio reinvents himself and becomes, the god of drums. So it's like, of course it all worked out. But anyway, I'm a huge fan of musicals, and so I love, like Rent and In the Heights, and then Hamilton, Spring Awakening, and a lot of that stuff. The drumming is so good in a lot of those, and the drum tones are phenomenal. But I love to hear that stuff because there's a lot of odd time signature stuff that you don't catch, and it's like, oh wow, really interesting drumming. But In the Heights has a hip hop feel to it, and so it's like cool, the first real musical with that hip hop feel, and the drumming is just phenomenal in that musical, man. And it's funny because when I did the Rock of Ages tour, a couple of those guys are musical theater people in the band, and they were talking about that, like on Broadway, the drummer will have, if they're not on stage like I was in Rock of Ages, if they're under the stage in the pit, they actually have their own drum room, and it's this isolated thing, and they go in and they lock the door, and they're in there for the whole show. And it's like in some of these musicals where there's a lot of dialogue and they really don't play a lot, they have a full-on like futon, and they lay down and they're hanging out on their phone, and it's like, oh, I got to play this cue, this part, and then they play that and they lay back down, and they're getting paid really well to do it,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and nobody sees them, nobody knows them. They walk out the door and nobody knows who they are. They just go to their, go to their apartment, and that's it.
Yeah, and I think, again, thank you for that, because it helps open people's eyes to the whole I want to be a rock star thing. There are so many other professional jobs available as a musician. We're almost out of time to make this fit on Instagram when we're done, because it's got to be under an hour. But give us a synopsis. I don't want to leave out your book. We've got an image of it on the player.
Thank
talk
you.
about your book.
Yeah, so Speed Mechanics for Drums, basically, there's a guitar player named... Right? Yeah, it's from Hal Leonard Publishing. Amazing. Those guys are incredible. And there's a guitar player named Troy Stetna, who is a just incredible guitar player, just, unbelievable. And he wrote probably, I think it was Hal Leonard's most popular and best-selling guitar book, and it was called Speed Mechanics for Guitar. And it was back in the shred era of guitar playing. And so he became known as that guy, and he sold a ton of books, and they really had a successful thing. Well, anyway, about 5 years ago, Hal Leonard approached Troy and said, we want to do a Speed Mechanics for Drums book. Do you know of a drummer that would, fit the bill? And so he called me up. He's like, I got just the guy,
Oh, that's
so
great.
He called me up and he said, hey, would you want to do this thing? And I was like, yeah. So I wrote that book. It took me 6 months to write it. And I mean, I'm talking like day and night in front of the computer, writing everything I know about drumming. And so it is Speed Mechanics for Drums, but it's also drumming in general. And it's about, like how to groove while you're playing fast. It's not just about how fast you can play, but it's how accurately you hit the drums, and how to really still groove while you're playing fast, and how to, one of the biggest mistakes that I see drummers make is that when they go to play something fast, they either tighten up or they take away their power source. Because as you know, molar technique, you're going to get that whipping motion right here at the base of the stick, right? That's going to be your power, that sort of pencil, the rubber pencil thing. That's where you're getting the power. Well, when I see a lot of drummers play fast, they take their pinkies off and they try to do something really fast like that, and it removes the power. And the problem is it drops out of the mix. The drums drop out of the mix instead of laying into it and really having the power as they're doing, or a fast beat or whatever, they actually fall out of the mix. So a big part of my book is talking about the importance of retaining your power while you're playing fast, and really, again, making an impact in the song. And so Speed Mechanics for Drums, it's not a double bass book. I mean, I talk about double bass, but the other thing that it's hands and feet. It's a holistic approach to playing drums fast, with groove and with feel. But the other thing that they did was they surprised me, because I wrote the book and they're like, and Troy goes, hey, the Hal Leonard people love the book. They love what you wrote, but now they want you to make a DVD and they want you to do clips of every exercise
I remember
that's
when
in
you
the
were
book.
working on that. Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I'll have this done in a couple of weeks. And Troy's like laughing, going, you're never going to get that done in a couple of weeks. It took me 6 months, day and night. But it was awesome. It was a great experience. But yeah, man. So I'm really, really proud of it. And then that song Kaleidoscope, the video that you see, incorporates the techniques that I use in the throughout the book and DVD. And so Kaleidoscope is the last exercise in the book, and it's actually transcribed at the end of the book. So when you see that video, there's actually a transcription of it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks. Yeah.
Chris, thanks for taking time to join me. Pretty much middle of the week, middle of the day. I appreciate it. Thank you all for joining Chris Moore and myself here on Drum Talk TV. Hope that was of value. If you missed any of this, it's going to archive to the page. rewind, watch it, and if you're watching this on the archive, thank you as well. We appreciate you. You are the best part of what we do. Thank you. Chris, hang out with me for a moment afterwards.
Yeah.
And thanks, everybody, so much. We'll see you.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.